Right, this morning we're going to start on the new painting, and this one I'm going into a great deal of detail with, especially with the preliminaries. I've already done the drawing with you. Now I want to go through the methods, tools and mediums and materials. Obviously in this case we're working on a white canvas. I've already drawn it out with an ordinary graphite pencil, and we're going to be using the rollers first of all and then possibly working to brushes after that. But before I even get to that stage I want to lead up to the processes that lead up to this. And what am I working from? I love working from Plein, and it is possible to use these rollers in Plein, and I will be doing that. I'll be showing you some examples here a bit later on. But I usually work from photographs. I prefer my own photographs, but I also work from other people's as well, and I do research to find those. Don't worry about this business of copyright. It's very misleading. You can use other people's photographs providing they're not directly reproduced. So if you take somebody else's photograph and you paint from it and change it, there's no copyright on it. It's yours. You can do as you wish. There's no worry about legal repercussions. Okay? So let's forget that one. Obviously if you reproduce somebody's actual photograph in perfect detail, then there could be problems. But with art and taking the images away and changing them and using them, as soon as you've done that, copyright's gone, it's yours. So I prefer to use my own, but in some cases I will take other people's photographs and I will change them. So here we are, here's a selection of various photographs, and you see the paintings that have been done from them. Next we'll look at some photographs where I've enhanced them, because I always take the photographs further, even my own. I like to take the photographs and re-enhance them using Photoshop, Photo Paint, so on, and digitise the photographs to bring out the colours, to bring out the shapes, and there's so many variations we can do. So here's just a couple. I haven't seen many sunflower fields this year, but here's one we've just found on the way back from the lakes. Well, here we are again on Plein, a beautiful sunny day here in France, in the Creuse, and a field only a few kilometres away from Fesselines, which is only a few kilometres from my own home at La Renachat. So we have this glorious field of sunflowers, and our canvas here amongst the middle of them. I'm hoping to do this in about 2 hours. One of my problems now is, of course, I haven't got a sink here, I haven't got a studio, I can't wash the brush, the roller as easily, but I do want to put the sky in using the roller, and so I'm going to have to wash it out a bit. Now, put some more lights back in over this later. Let's just get some of these dark shadows amongst these leaves. Put the right colours in the right places and the right shapes, and the paintings just appear. There, well, I think that was a risk worth taking. It does seem to have worked. Right, we'll photograph that. So here we are down on the river, and I'm going to be painting from this view just up here. You can see where my easel is. Well, here we are in situ. That's the view I'm going to do. I've got my canvas set up now. So my big camera set up on the canvas, palette of paints, acrylics, mixing palette, roller, piece of chalk to draw out with, and my set of brushes. And of course a nice big canvas. And I'm ready to go. Right, well I'm set up now. I'm going to start off with a piece of green chalk and just draw it out first of all. Fair size brush for that, just to start off with. Water's ready. I'm going to want my sponge roller as well. Right, so I'm ready to paint now. I'm going to start on mixing up some colour and using the rollers first of all. Very light cream with a little touch of the green. And we'll just use quite a textural sponge to start to get some texture into the background here. There we go. Well, I've done all I think I can do, but I would like to be a bit looser yet, but maybe not for this one. I'd like to do an oil yet before I go, possibly of a large landscape, scenic landscape. I've got white to put back on here afterwards. Get more yellow into that. Splashing away here, I remember 14 years ago, what a lovely time it was and a lovely visit I had with my sculpturist friend Pascal. Ultramarine now as the dark. Come across the face against and play against the warmth of these colours. Now, I think it is about time to start getting in with the brush because I need to really work into a bit more of the shapes. I'm not doing photorealism, even though I'm doing all this detail, I'm just doing an impression still. Can you feel the wind and the surf? I hope so. There we are, another one in the secret series of these two girls enjoying their little secret lives on the beach. And then we can look at the actual way that the rollers are used and the textures and surfaces and effects that we can get using a roller and a brush. Let's take a look at some of those effects now. press harder, like that, I get a clearer mark. If I press lightly, I get these lovely textural marks of the sponge. It's your choice how hard you push and how much paint you put on as to the effect you actually get. I think it's time to actually demonstrate for you now, but not on this painting yet. I'm leaving that till I've gone through the preliminaries with you. I want to show you the tools and materials I'm going to use first, then I'm going to just show you the ways of using the roller on a piece of dark card. I've already primed black, just to show how the colours come out. First of all then, we'll look at the tools. And here's one that's been used already. Here's a new one, but these come in various shapes and different sizes. And here's one from the s.a.a, a nice small one, the fine edge. Now the thing with the s.a.a one, and this is one I want to experiment with today, is the s.a.a roller. We've used these other ones before. The sponges on these are quite stiff, so they're ideal for the acrylic here. The sponges on the s.a.a are a little bit softer. We're going to see how well they work with acrylics. I want to experiment with these later, and I'm going to do another video later on for you with watercolour with these. Maybe even using acrylic inks with them and so on as well, because I think they'll be wonderful for texture with the acrylic inks and then putting pastel over the top of those. So we can experiment and explore with those yet in that way. We'll see how they work with the acrylics today though as well. Then I bought a pack of these slightly firmer rollers, but they also come in different shapes and sizes as well. For instance, not only do they come in larger ones, there's the one we've just been using, that's the one I use most of all. I haven't had much use for the great big ones yet, but they come in various patterns and textures as well, such as these ones. And there could be a use for these in painting. The only thing is you're going to get a repeated pattern, but in many of the abstract works you might do, they could be very, very useful, couldn't they? And these come in stars and dots and all sorts of different patterns you can buy. Not expensive, you can get them in packs from eBay. But do look out for those prices. I mean, I got these at 50p each from Amazon, whereas they were being sold at over £1 from eBay singly. So, you know, you've got to look out for the deals. Anyway, that's the rollers. As you can see, I got a box full here for a tenner of 20 from Amazon. So a good deal there, worth shopping around. That'll last me a while. They do tend to last quite a long time anyway. Eventually they start to clog up and go. This one's been used quite a bit and it's starting to go rounded at the edges. Okay for base work, but at that price, 50p a piece, it doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, they'll last 8 or 9 paintings, one of these, easily, because they aren't abused. Next, let's look at the brushes I shall use to finish off with, or paint with as a whole. These are my acrylic and oil brushes. I keep 2 sets actually, one for acrylics and one for oils. This is my acrylic set. Notice we've got some nice soft household brushes here, which have a straight flat edge, very useful for the larger sections of painting. And then I've got filberts all the way through here. These long handle filberts I prefer because I like to reach out to my work. I like filberts because the rounded edge, it means you can paint with a flat edge one way and do a large area, or a thin edge the other, as you'll see me doing. So they're very versatile. Also softer rounder edges, especially on portraits and so on. If I want square brushes, I do keep square and flat ends. And also I then have a selection of round pointed brushes as well, and usually a rigger with these too. And I've got some smaller nylon straights as well if I want to do things like windows or square edges. I keep in a couple of palette knives or painting knives, some sponge for doing textural work and scraping. Even a larger household scraper can be very useful. That's for my acrylics and I use a similar set for the oils. But I only need those. I find that I can get away with that entire set of brushes for nearly everything I do in any subject, whether it be animals or marine, landscape, skies, whatever else. Those filberts are very, very useful, most versatile brushes, and as I say, the rounds for finer work. Whereas with watercolour, I tend to find I need a lot more brushes, because I use many more techniques, many more textures. I've got the rakes, I've got the hakes, my mops, my daggers and my swords, the rounds, flats, a whole series, a plethora of different brushes. It isn't like a fisherman who has a whole collection of floats but only has one favourite and uses only one. I do tend to find that I do use all of these brushes at varying times, sometimes more in a painting than others. Occasionally I can just use a mop and a rigger. or a hake and a rigger, as Ron Ranson used to use. Other times I might need far more of these textures. So we're going to play with those and with the little s.a.a. roller later. And I'll keep one of these in this pack now from now on. To experiment with watercolour and textures and acrylic inks, I think it could be very, very useful, and we'll show you that later when we've done those experiments. And I'm going to keep obviously a sponge roller with my acrylic set, which is what we're going to be using today, and also the s.a.a. one to experiment with it and just see how good they are and what effects we can get. There's a nicer handle to them. Being smaller, I should be able to do smaller rounder edges, so I think we're going to find them very useful. Right, after that, what are we actually going to put the paints in? And this is for acrylics only. So I've got two sandwich boxes, just ordinary sandwich boxes like this, £2.99 this one, so not expensive but not too thick. These are quite big ones, deep ones, but not too thin either, otherwise the paints can start hitting the lid. Now all we do with this is put in 2 layers of paper towels in the bottom and then 1 layer of greaseproof or tracing paper in the top. You don't have to have the tracing paper, but the paper towel tends to go fluffy after a while if you don't. Especially if you're going to mix on it. If you have 2 palettes, one for your paints and one for mixing in, then you'll find that when you start mixing, the paper towel will go all furry and fluff up and start tearing away. So that's why we've got the greaseproof on. Then you put some water in, wet them quite well, and your paints in afterwards, and they will stay wet for months that way, as long as you put the lids on them, and they'll stay reasonably wet even when you're working, and better than they would if they were just on a dry plate. Now for mixing after that, that's completely up to you. You can use paper plates, plastic plates, a baking tray here as I've been using, or proper mixing palettes, or indeed a little tray for aperitifs here. And there are also specialist little trays you can get for rolling into, which are very good as well. You just want something that's big enough to get your roller in if you want to put the whole roller in, which you will do. And I tend to use then my larger brushes for lifting the paint from the palettes into there and mixing my base colour, and then I go into my roller afterwards and pick up the colour, which I'm going to show you shortly. Keep some sponges there for texturing as well, some sea sponges, and that's it, that's my basics. So let's just take a look at the sort of marks we can get now by using the roller. Now I'm going to start off on a piece of ordinary card which I've primed with black acrylic, and I'll start with the white because I want to show you just how effectively we can use these rollers. So I'll take some brand new rollers here, these two, and just see what they can do. To roll that through it, and what I tend to do is, when I've mixed the paint, I tend to roll the roller over the brush to get all the paint out of the brush. Now, depending how much paint we put on, so I put on just a medium thin layer at the moment, and let's just see the effect we can get with that by doing it just quite lightly over there. Now you can see the texture of the paint showing through underneath. So we can glaze that. If I do it very lightly, I can just glaze over very, very lightly with that to leave the colour showing through underneath. And you'll see me doing a lot of this, what I call ghosting, in the paintings as we go along. Or I can put a lot heavier paint on, so we've got quite a nice thick gungy layer of it. And again, I'll show you this as we go along as well. For instance, I've used it on the dress of one of the ladies, one of the cafe scenes, to get a feeling of even like heavier brush strokes going on. So quite heavy paint then layered on there. You can see that it's quite a different effect to this one. Of course we can go across things as well to give a double effect, crisscrossing. And we can use the edge of the roller as well for lines, quite lightly, look. We can curve with it as well. So you can go around shapes, you can draw with them, you can texture with it, little tiny strokes, and you can drag with it as well. So you can drag the roller across or blotch and drag. Quite versatile. Now that's almost as many marks as you can make with a brush, isn't it? So people are amazed just how versatile these sponge rollers can be. And I only started exploring with these because I was doing larger abstracts, doing textural work, and then I suddenly found, God, these things are wonderful, you can do so much more with them. And I started then this series of the secrets, and we're doing more contemporary work and linked with the figurative work, very successful. We'll just stop that there and we'll have a little go now with the s.a.a. roller. Let's see how that works. I haven't put water on them. When they're wet you've got to be a bit more careful. Now that actually has gone on quite well. Oh, they're very nice actually. That's not bad at all. Better than I thought it was going to be. I thought the sponges were going to be a bit soft, but no, that's worked very well. Let's use a bit more paint in it now and see how it works with heavier paint. So quite thick impasto paint now. Yes, not bad. Fine lines, yes. Not quite as sharp as the stiffer roller, but not bad at all. Let's just try it with the sides now. Yes, we can do the sideways. Right, what we're going to do next is put a bit of colour on, so I can show you how we can glaze over colours and get this almost dry brush effect. People are saying to me, do you have to keep cleaning the rollers? No, if you work from your medium and light colours upwards, or mix colours that are going to need to be mixed together, so if you want orange, if you've got yellow already, you add some red, you've got your orange, you don't have to keep cleaning the roller. So I'm just going to take some yellow, put that straight into there, and mix it in. We'll use this little s.a.a. roller for the moment, because that's the one I really want to experiment with today. You can see I can just blend that into my roller. I can use the brush also to take it off the brush, and we'll coat a nice layer here. And I'm going to go quite thickly. I can go several times over. You can see how I can cover the colour underneath, or I can just leave it showing through. If I want a cream look, I can just come through there, letting it glaze through. So let's give quite a heavy layer here, work it up several times over, more and more and more and more, and you can see the dark showing through here, the light showing through there. This is just so I can really give you an idea of how it can work. Now we'll use the other roller for fun, just see if it's any different for you. I'll put a bit darker colour into that. This is a slightly heavier roller. Get it going, mixing it with the cream. And I can push a little bit harder, but actually, surprisingly enough, those little rollers aren't bad at all. I'm quite pleased with that. I will definitely be using this a lot in this painting we're about to demonstrate. Right, straight away then, I'm going to take some red. We can make a nice red-orange. I'll take a little bit of alizarin crimson as well into that. And I'll take my little roller, roll it through there. Now let's show you about this glazing, how we can do glazing with it. So I've got a fairly dry mix on there, and I'll just bring that lightly across here, and look how delicately we can glaze across something. We can go more and more and more, different ways. You don't have to have the mark showing, until eventually, if we want, we can just put some heavier stuff on there, quite heavily now down through it. The paint underneath hasn't properly dried yet, so it's interesting to see how it's working. But you can then do these lines through it. And crisscross if I want to do lines or textures. Let's try the slightly heavier one. It is working as I thought. The smaller roller is struggling a little bit with heavier paint, but it's not doing badly at all. We'll take this larger one now, and again the lines. So I mean, it's worth having. Yes, I think, see, the stronger sponge is slightly better on the lines, but both very effective. And now I'll take some blue and we'll glaze over with that for fun. Take some ultramarine, straight into that colour there. I'm going to mix straight in. Haven't had to wash the roller at all. And we can glaze over again. You can see now the light showing through, how we can get these lovely textures. Or I can use heavier paint altogether, push harder, mix it straight in. We can use again the fine lines. We can draw with it, we can texture with it, we can dot with it, we can do the curves with it, we can come round forms. It's quite surprising. Let's use that now for the bigger roller. After this I'll wash them ready to be used on the main painting. But now we can go around with that roller as well. And you can see the differences. Both going to have their uses, I can see. So there we are. You get an idea of just what we can do with these rollers, and you can see now I've got several colours on the roller. Now I've got several colours on the roller. When I go across it, I'm able to do a mixture of multi patterns. Again, all very effective, just so versatile. In fact, in many ways more versatile, or certainly adding to brushes. So I'm tending to use these first of all and then work into brushes and then backwards and forwards, or finish my paintings with the brushes. And I've used it for marine, and I've used them for landscapes, and I've used them on plein air, and I've used them in the studio. Use them all over, everywhere. I think it's a new way of painting that you might all find very exciting. So there we are then, the use of the sponge roller, and you can see how we've got these different effects by layering across one another, or by letting it just ghost through by using them lightly, or using them much more heavily. Again, I'll just take a little bit of white, and I'm going to go back to a light colour because we were talking about whether we have to wash the roller all the time. I'll take a little bit of white onto the roller straight away, and we'll just try glazing over this. So I haven't cleaned the roller, and you see we can work straight away, and those paints aren't even dry, so very versatile indeed. Okay, we'll just do a little bit with the lines. We can curve, we can do all sorts of textures and shapes, grasses, reeds. We could do leaves if I want. Let's try some leaves. Take a bit of green, just for fun, straight into my colour I've just been using. And let's see if we can get some leaf shapes going here. 1, 2, 1, 2, just one there, one there. Now we've got a whole little tree, leaf shapes, and you'll see me doing this in the landscape one when I'm working down on the side of the Cruise River. Now some yellow, a little bit of yellow, not even cleaning the roller, straight into the yellow, a little bit of white and yellow, and we can just put some sunlight onto those leaves. Again, very effective. So what fun, eh? We could just go on and on using these colours. If I wanted to do a pine tree, I could do marks like this, or like this. Well, the world's your oyster. You can certainly experiment and explore, can't you? Right, so we'll move on now to the actual painting, and we'll make a start of building that up. What I've decided to do on this one, before I get to the demo, is to get these swans completed here and part of this area, so that I can then work on and show them the rest fairly easily. So I'm just going to work on those bits now, and then it'll be ready for the demonstration later. Now I just want to go to this figure, and do the figure. I've done those swans now, we go on to the figure. Right, that'll do for now. So I'm going to start fairly loose and gradually tighten up, and what I want to do is get the effects of light. So it's more fine brushes, so use your heavier, bigger brushes to mix with, and then come down to your fine ones to paint with. Treat them gently. Stroke with the brush, don't scrub with it, unless you're deliberately doing dry brush work. If you're deliberately doing scumbling, my students love that word, scumbling, it's almost like a Yorkshire word, isn't it? We'll scumble a bit today, dear. But scumbling is almost like dry brush work onto the surface. Unless we're doing that, we want to stroke with the brush, gently blend. So I'm going to mix up, shove some white in here. I mean, I've got my paints ready to use there for the rest of it, but at the moment I just want to get some colour going for the roller. Put the white in first and add your colour to it. Don't start with the colour and add the white, you'll end up with a gallon, alright? Even that little touch, you can see how orange that's gone. I'll put a little bit on just for fun. I could do it with a brush, but I just want to show you how we're going to work these with a roller. Let's get going then. So you notice also with my drawing that all I've done is just, now you can see the drawing coming through there. So this is what I mean, if that was oils it wouldn't quite see it. And I'm going to do different directions with this, and I'm going to work more paint over in a minute. I can see my drawing still, so I'm going to gradually build this up and the drawing will disappear. We find that with watercolour, don't we? You know, if we work lightly with the pencil in watercolour. The only thing with watercolour is, watch your rubber, don't use too hard a rubber, because if you use a hard rubber, it disturbs the surface of the paper and it will wreck that layer of glue size that they've used, to make the paper with. So if you've washed the paper surface or you've scrubbed around on it, it does change the paper surface and it will become more absorbent. I save white till the very, very end if I have an emergency, or in a watercolour it's a bit easier. I mean, I can use pure white a lot more to sparkle in the paper, but normally with a paint like this, I save white till the very end. If I have to use it, I'll be trying to use pure colours wherever. The atmosphere and the light of each different place we paint. And each of my paintings, if you look at my website or on here even, almost every single one that's done in a different place will look very different, which is what I'm trying to attain. So a little touch now of magenta. In every single colour there is a warm and a cool. I've got caught one out to get a lot more done. There's a warm and a cool. So in reds, a purple is going to be a cool red, a cadmium red is going to be a warm red. In blue, cerulean is a cool blue, it's icy, yeah? And ultramarine would be a much warmer blue, it's more purpley blue. In greens, viridian, very cool blue, bluey green, and then sap green would be very warm. And they're called hues. Good old hue. So they're called colour hues. Right, let's go on, and I just want to go over this a little bit now. Let's see if I can just get this to just do a little bit of this broken colour I was talking about, just to get the feeling of clouds going on. Might seem a bit, but even now you can start to see a vibrance coming there, even with a little bit of pink. These areas here, let's start to get the haziness of the blue coming there. Right up and into this. You might think that's going to be sky at first, but as I go on, I'm going to add more and more colours into this. How long have I got? Another 10 minutes before you want your cup of teas. Right down to there. And just round through a bit there. I come in with the brush to do the fine work. To these leaves, and I could just start using a round brush now to give me the more pointy bits, but just sort of go with this one just to show you what I mean. I just want to this evening, if I can't get the whole thing done, at least you'll see. Now if I start to paint these darks against these lights here, look how that pushes those colours back behind it, yeah? So we start to get the frame.
Are you using your rigger brush?
No, this is just an ordinary, I haven't got to the rigger yet. Now I'll start to just work in these very light bits that are cooler green there, look. Like this now, I mean it's almost pure cerulean I'm putting on there now just to work the reflections of light off the leaves. Just to catch a little bit of the light there. But I'll try and always show you something that you haven't tried before, or use it, you know.
Can we have a big hand for Peter tonight, please?
Thank you. Well, I've now brought this back to the studio at home. We worked on it last night at the demonstration, and in daylight, of course, it's quite different, much clearer, better in the artificial light. So I will have to do quite a bit more work on it yet. We've got bits of canvas showing through in places where the roller hasn't quite covered it. And I want to bring up these colours much more clearly and in more detail. Well, I've gone as far with this one now as I intended to go. Let's just look at it through the various stages, shall we? From when we first did it at the demonstration, to coming back, doing the background, and now I've done the final details on the front. So here are the three pictures.